Good afternoon. Welcome to October 8th, 2024 City of Suffolk Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. I want to welcome back Mr. Eslick. He's been out and he's looking fabulous and shiny and happy, better than ever. And I want to welcome Mr. Fred Walker to our Board of Zoning Appeals. This is his first meeting, and so be patient with us because we may have to walk through some of the items a little bit more slowly. We have a big agenda today. So we will get started. First, Ms. Cobb, will you please call roll?
Shantae Hall.
Present.
Richard Eslick.
Present.
Corey Carnegie. Melissa Venable.
Present.
Fred Walker.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Terrific. We didn't really have minutes from the last BZA meeting because we didn't have a full quorum, so we don't need to vote on that, I don't believe. Is that correct? Okay. And we'll move forward right into our agenda. The first agenda item today is BZA 22-2024, 9520 Pineview Road, submitted by Seth Delvin. Ms. Cobb, will you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 22-2024. The applicant, Seth Devlin, on behalf of the owner, Lucas Warble, is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setback from 20 feet to 3.5 feet for an existing metal shed. The property is identified as tax map 72*31*3, addressed as 9520 Pineview Road, zoning classification agricultural zoning district. When you act on this request, you'll be acting on a request to reduce the required side yard setback from 20 feet to 3.5 feet for an existing metal shed. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We will now have staff analysis and recommendation read by Melvion Knight, Assistant Zoning Administrator.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members, Secretary of the Board, staff, zoning administrator, city officers, and guests. My name is Melvion Knight, and I'm the Assistant Zoning Administrator for the City of Suffolk. The application that I will be reporting today is staff report application BZA 22-2024. The applicant, Seth Devlin, on behalf of Lucas Warble, is requesting a variance request from the Unified Development Ordinance, UDO, Article 4, Section 407, parentheses C, Table 407-1, parentheses L. Dimensional standards to reduce the required side yard setback from 20 feet to 3.5 feet for an existing metal shed. The property is identified as tax map 72*31*3, addressed as 9520 Pineview Road, Suffolk, Virginia, Wellerville voting borough, zoning classification, agricultural district. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to the adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2-2204 of the Code of Virginia. A public notice sign was posted on the property pursuant to the request of the zoning administrator. The applicant, on behalf of the new owner, Lucas Warble, is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setback for an existing detached metal shed/garage. The home was constructed in 2022 with a final certificate of occupancy signed on March 14th, 2023 for a single-family dwelling. The applicant stated that the property was purchased in good faith on March 21st, 2023, and at the time of purchase, no existing detached structure was on the property. In May of 2023, staff received a complaint regarding an accessory structure without a permit, which was encroaching into the required side yard setback. A notice of violation was issued on May 12, 2023, for the accessory structure not meeting the required side yard setback and not having a permit. The applicant failed to comply with the notices within the allotted time, which resulted in several judgments entered for civil penalties by the Suffolk General District Courts over a course of a year. In June of 2024, Mr. Devlin submitted an application to the Board of Zoning Appeals as the property was under construction with the new owners, Lucas Warble. This lot is conforming and meets the requirements of dimensional standards required by the Unified Development Ordinance. And due to the lack of hardship and the ability to meet the required side yard setback, staff does not recommend approval of this request. If you can see the illustration that's before you is the actual full-scale survey of the property. The hash area that's in the center of the property shows the buildable area on the property. The area that's shown in green is the area where the 3.5 requested reduction is located per the application. And the location that's shown in yellow is showing the true, orange is showing the true location of the 20-foot side yard setback. This illustration shows that more than 50% of the structure encroaches into the 20-foot side yard setback, and that with the relocation, or if it was permitted at the time of the bill, the property has several locations which would have supported the large structure on the property. This was just a diagram that was submitted along with the building plan, showing the interior of the building and the layout according to the floor plan. And this is the structure that currently exists on the property from the time of the original contact with the property owner. The date on this image is 5/11/23. That was the date that our inspector team went out to do an assessment of the property and found the structure present on the site. Staff is available for any questions that the board may have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a quick question. I just wanted for clarification. I think I read this, but there was no building permit pulled for this particular building?
No, ma'am. We just received a building permit application shortly after the Board of Zoning Appeals application was submitted by the applicant.
Okay, so there was no permit or anything?
Yes,
for
it
this
was
to
not a
be-
permitted structure at the time.
Okay. Is there any other questions?
Well, I think the basic question is if they had applied for a permit, they would not have been able to put it in the place that it's at. Is that correct?
No, sir. Staff would have submitted a formal set of comments to advise them to select other locations that would have supported the structure if it was permitted at the time of construction.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We will now open the public hearing. Hearings are 30 minutes in length, 10 minutes for proponents, 15 minutes for opposition, and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Please. Please state your name and address.
Yes, I'm Lucas Roble. I'm the one who purchased the home, 9520 Pineview Road, excuse me.
Okay, and
So-
please give us the information.
Yeah, so when all these applications were done, this is under negotiations of the home. The day prior to the original closing, all of that was disclosed to us. Excuse me, not disclosed. My realtor and the lawyer found it. So once we were made aware, we halted all negotiations. They did apply for all these applications at my request at the time. We continued on with negotiations under good faith, thinking that everything was done correctly. Again, I was stationed in California at the time, so I was emailing, phone calls. After closing, I actually got in touch with Ms. Cobb. I'm sorry if I'm not addressing you correctly. When she disclosed to me that I had to get a current survey, which is the one y'all used to now, because when they applied originally, they had the wrong survey. So, yes. We got this completed. I emailed Ms. Cobb, gave them all the information, and I guess we're here today for this. So I do apologize that some of that I actually learned today. I didn't know that was all the information.
Okay, thank you, Lucas. We'll continue with the hearing, and if we have questions afterwards, we'll call you back
I'm sorry,
up.
this is my first time. So.
No problem at all. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
well, thank you very much.
Much appreciated. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this application? Is there anything else you'd like to add, Lucas?
Thank you again. Yeah, so me and my wife, we moved in a couple months ago. Again, I understand it's against zoning and the permits and everything were done incorrectly, but it would be just a big inconvenience for the tearing down. It's a big structure. We are currently using it for storage at the moment. So I would just appreciate the thought on that is all. If there's any questions, please feel free.
Thank you. If you will stay by, we will have questions. We just need to close the public hearing first.
Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else to speak in favor or of this application? That'll close this public hearing. In the reason I hesitated, in the package, we have a letter that is in opposition of the application from, I believe, a neighbor, Helen Allen. Is Miss Allen available by chance? Now, Mr. Lucas, would you mind coming back up? I apologize for the back and forth. In her letter, she states, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but she states that the shed is being used for industrial type use, or that is a concern of hers, that it will be used for industrial.
No, currently I have moving boxes in it, a lawnmower, just a smaller one. When we moved in, we did speak with her. She did mention that her and the previous owners did not get along very well. I do not get that feeling today. I even informed her that I would be filing for an appeal to keep the building. I made that very clear to her. So I have zero intentions of industrial use. I don't know if, sorry.
Do you all have any other questions for Mr. Lucas while he's here? I'm sorry. I apologize. I didn't.
I'm a little confused. When you bought the property, the building was there, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So it was built by the seller?
The
to
previous,
you.
yes, sir.
Okay, and that seller was the one that did not obtain any permits?
Correct, sir.
Okay.
During the inspection of the property before you purchased, was the building there?
Yes, ma'am. So like I said, our original closing date was, I believe, early March. But the day before, when our lawyer found that there was I'm not sure the correct term, but basically, hey, this is a violation, we stopped the negotiations because they were assuming that we were going to close, then I would have assumed everything we're talking about now. So we stopped the negotiations. I said, I would like y'all to file the appeal, get all the paperwork in order to keep this building, or at least for this hearing. And at the time, I got the verbal that everything was complete. We continued on in good faith. But then, I'd reached out to Ms. Cobb, and that's when I found out that some of that still hadn't been done. And then I took care of it from there as fast as I could. The survey took a little bit longer than I wanted, but we tried to get on the last month's docket, but it got pushed to this one just because of the survey.
I have a question about did the attorney who was representing you, did he give you the confidence that you should proceed?
Yes, sir, he did.
So this is a very large structure. It's not your standard shed. It's very close to the property boundary, and it doesn't conform with anything. We're not even close in this context. If the adjacent property owner was here and she had a level of comfort, I might feel differently, but she sent in a letter that is very clear that this is not comfortable to her. And I hate that it falls on you. I certainly hope in your closing of the property, there's some way to have the builder take care of anything that goes on here. I don't know if you guys can't weigh in on that, can you? Is there any other questions for Mr. Lucas? Or, I'm sorry, I'm going to call you the right name. I apologize. Mr. Roble. I like Lucas better. Roble, Mr. Roble.
Either way, thank you. I appreciate it.
Is a copy of the letter in our package, or do you just have that?
It's right here. It's in
Where
the
is it?
package.
You can have a seat. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you for your service, sir.
It's in the back.
Bear with us for just a second. Ms. Knight, can you explain the appeals process and if there's ramifications here.
If the board decides with the recommendation of the city to not support the application, the property owner or the applicant has 30 days to appeal said application or request to the general district courts for consideration. And then from there, the courts will make a decision to either overturn the decision of the Board of Zoning Appeals or forward it back to this office or this body for another consideration.
So with that said, the violation didn't occur under Mr. Lucas Robles' watch.
No, ma'am.
This was the original property owner who built the structure. So would he be going to the Court of Appeals? He or she?
Well, because he is a new property owner, any existing violations will then transfer over to the current owner. So at this time, he's trying to remedy the issues from the previous property owner. I know that the previous property owner did pay the court cost fees, so they are still within that 6-month window, which allows them to, they did not admit fault, but they could come into compliance with our ordinance standards. So they are still within that window to bring the item into compliance right now. So.
And it wasn't voiced to you that any cost incurred would be, I'm assuming, once they closed on this property, any cost would fall back to the original property owner? I would assume that there was some agreement that if you were accepting this violation.
Well, I can't speak to exactly, what transpired between their attorneys, but I know that with our discussions with the original property owner, they were trying to resolve the problem to complete the sale. But I'm not sure, what agreement they went into prior to signing off on the exchange of the parcel.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, and just to give you just a little feedback, because I know that the timelines are kind of overlapping, Mr. Delvin took possession of the property in '23, and Mr. Woolman took possession in 2024. So their timeline, so it was March of 2023 that Mr. Delvin and his partners took possession of the property, and then the negotiations as far as the sale date, because they're a military family too. So they possessed it, and then the sale began this year in March of 2024, because it seemed like it was some overlapping with the date, but they didn't have possession that long either, the previous property owner.
All right. Thank you. Questions, comments, or a motion?
I think we have a situation where the current owner was misrepresented by his attorney. He was told to move forward, but I don't think it's our job to correct mistakes that were made in this process. So based on that, I'm going to recommend that we not approve the motion.
So we have a motion for denial by Mr. Eslick.
Yes.
Do we have a second of a motion?
If I could add, not that I'm trying to talk anybody into seconding my motion, but I think I wanted to make one thing clear. We've had similar things happen before, and right now it seems like the current owner has legal recourse in how he was represented in the sale, and I don't think that we should correct the situation based on that misrepresentation, and that's the reason why I made the motion to deny.
I'll second your motion, Mr. Eslick. So we have a motion on the table for denial of the application. Is there any discussion of the motion? Todd, will you please call for a vote?
Shante Hall.
Let me just make it clear again. So voting affirmatively, voting a yes, is supporting the denial.
Right.
Voting no would be to not support the denial. Does that make sense? Okay, my apologies.
Shante Hall.
Yes.
Richard Eslick.
Yes.
Corey Carnegie. Melissa Venable.
Yes.
Fred Walker.
Yes.
The motion carries 4-0.
I apologize, sir. I hope that there was recourse in your favor. Moving forward, we're moving to BZA 24-2024, 223 Raleigh Avenue, Black Tip Associations. Ms. Cobb, will you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 24-2024. The applicant, Black Tip Associates, is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setbacks from 10 feet to 5.73 feet for the construction of a new single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map 35H4F*PT*6, addressed as 223 Raleigh Avenue, zoning classification, residential medium density. When you act on this request, you'll be acting on a request to reduce the required side yard setbacks from 10 feet to 5.73 feet for construction of a new single-family dwelling. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We will now have staff analysis and recommendation by Kevin Alexander, zoning inspector.
Good afternoon, Board. Good afternoon, all in attendance. As previously stated, the applicant, Black Tip Associates, is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, UDO, Article 4, Section 31-407C, Table 407-1, Dimensional Standards L, to reduce the minimum required side yard setback from 10 feet to 5.73 feet in order to construct a single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map and parcel 35H(4) F*PT*6, located at 223 Raleigh Avenue, Suffolk, Virginia, Welleyville voting borough, zoning classification RM, residential medium density. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to the adjacent property owners in accordance with the Section 15.2-2204 of the Code of Virginia. The public notice sign was posted on the property pursuant to the request of the zoning administrator. What you have on the screen now is a general location map. The subject property is located in the Central Growth Area Core Support District, which supports and promotes new single-family within the infill development area. The next slide is actually showing the zoning land use map, which actually shows your overhead view of the parcel and the adjacent parcel surrounding it. This slide actually shows the posted notice in front of the property. Sorry about the bushes, but that was the best place where we can put it. And this is in accordance with the state. Here's our actual site plan, actually showing the 20-foot wide structure with 2 off-street parking spaces, as well as a couple of trees and the actual dimensions of the lot in question. This is the 20-foot model. This is the model in which the applicant proposes to use. It's actually showing the elevations, exterior aesthetics, and lastly, just to give a little bit more context to this particular application, this was brought before the board back in this year. It was at the time, at the site plan review, is where they noticed that they were going to need an additional 2 inches in order to construct the actual this model. And so without a variance, this particular application wouldn't be able to meet the setback, so therefore staff recommends approval of this application. And I'm available for any questions. If you guys want to know anything, I'm here.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah.
Is there any questions for Kevin? Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
We'll now open the public hearing. Hearings are 30 minutes in length, 10 minutes for the proponents, 15 minutes for opposition, and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application?
were here a few months ago, and it was approved, but then I think something got messed up, or we were a couple of inches off, so we had to go ahead and redo it again. So here we are. So,
Sorry. Thank you, sir. Tell me your name. I apologize, and address.
my name's Les, L-E-S, or O-R-E.
Thank you, Les. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Is there anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Orr? That'll close this public hearing. Do you have any questions? Mr. Orr, is the house already built? Oh, it's just that when you submitted your site plans and stuff, you recognized there was an issue. So this was, just to make things clear, this was approved by BZA. This application was approved, but they realized as they were submitting for their site plan, they were 2 inches off, 2 inches off on their application request, so they're re-asking for the same. Does that make sense? Okay. Do we have a motion, discussion?
I'll make a motion for approval.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr.
approval.
Walker is making his first second. Thank you, sir. Do we have a motion for approval, discussion of the motion? Seeing none, we'll ask Ms. Cobb, will you please take a vote?
Shante Hall?
Excuse myself.
Okay.
She's not.
Ms. Hall would like to recuse herself because she owns the property that sits right behind this, this particular lot. Is that correct? Okay.
Richard Eslick?
Yes.
Corey Carnegie? Melissa Venable?
Yes.
Fred Walker?
Yes.
The motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, sir. Good luck to you. Moving on to BZA 25-2024, 415 Culloden Street, submitted by BC Branch Enterprises. Ms. Cobb, will you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 25-2024. The applicant, BC Branch Enterprises, is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 10 feet for construction of new single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map 34G 243K*1, addressed as 415 Culloden Street, zoning classification residential medium density. When you act on this request, you'll be acting on a request to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 10 feet for construction of a new single-family dwelling. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We will now have staff analysis and recommendation by Lisa Marshall, zoning official.
Good afternoon, all. The applicant, BC Branch Enterprises, Inc., is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31-407C, Table 407-1, Dimensional Standards L, to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 10 feet to construct a new single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map and parcel 34G24, parentheses 3, K*1, located at 415 Culloden Street, Suffolk, Virginia, Raleigh voting borough. Zoning classification RM, residential medium. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2-2204 of the Code of Virginia. The public notice sign was posted on the property pursuant to the request of the zoning administrator. In accordance with Section 31-309C2 of the UDO, a variance may be granted by the board only if the applicant establishes compliance with the hardship criteria established in Section 15.2-2309 of the Code of Virginia, An excerpt from the state code, which outlines the established criteria, is attached at the end of this report. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street, which is Forest Street, from 25 feet to 10 feet in order to construct a new single-family dwelling. The dimensional requirements for a newly plotted lot in the RM zoning district requires lots to have a total land area of 10,000 square feet with a minimum street frontage of 60 feet and a lot width of 80 feet measured at the front setback line. This lot is approximately 4,000 square foot in land area, making the lot legally non-conforming. The width of any newly constructed home must be a minimum of 20 feet wide. Due to the inability to construct a 20-foot wide home on the lot and meet the required setbacks, staff recommends approval of this request. And I am available if there are any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall. I also wanted to pause and thank you very much, which we should have done this early on. I should have done this. You pointing out that the BZA's criteria is based on the hardship criteria. And that's what we have to, in all of our applications, we need to find a hardship to be able to support that. As you noted, we didn't see that in the first application, but we failed to note that based on those 8 findings, we didn't see a hardship in that first because there was just a process that wasn't followed, that should have been followed, that the city has set up, and it's pretty easy to follow if you just try. But the last application, there was a hardship, so I appreciate that, and we keep that in mind for each of the applications that come up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now open the public hearing. The same standards are in place. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application?
Hope everybody's doing well. Brennan Branch, 701 Jones Street, Suffolk. I'm here to answer any questions if you think of something.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Mr. Branch, is there anything you'd like to add? That'll close the public hearing. Do we have any questions, comments, or a motion?
I'll make a motion for approval.
We have a motion for approval.
I'll second.
We have a second, and again, this is based on a hardship. This is that this is an undevelopable lot without a BZA approval coming forward. So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any conversation based on the motion? Seeing none, we'll ask Ms. Cobb for a vote.
Shantae Hall,
Yes.
Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Corey Carnegie, Melissa Venable,
Yes.
Fred Walker.
Yes.
The motion carries 4-0.
Congratulations, sir. Our next application is BZA 26-2024, 219 Baker Street, submitted by Tier 1 Construction. Ms. Cobb, will you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 26-2024. The applicant, Tier 1 Construction, is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 2.7 feet for the construction of a new addition. The property is identified as Tax Map 35H1B*26, addressed as 219 Baker Street, zoning classification, residential medium density. When you act on this request, you'll be acting on a request to reduce the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 2.7 feet for the construction of a new addition. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We will now have staff analysis and recommendation by Melvia Knight, Assistant Zoning Administrator.
The applicant's Tier 1 Construction is requesting a variance request from the Unified Development Ordinance, UDO, Article 4, Section 31-407, parentheses C, Table 407-1, parentheses L, dimensional standards to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 2.7 feet for the construction of a new addition. The property is identified as Tax Map 35H, parentheses 1B*26, addressed as 219 Baker Street. Suffolk, Virginia, Wellerville voting borough, zoning classification, residential medium density RM. The variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance to 15.2-2204 of the Code of Virginia. A public notice sign was posted on the property pursuant to the request of the zoning administrator. The applicant states that the RM zoning district setbacks will not permit the addition of the proposed 12.5-foot by 22-foot existing dwelling addressed as 219 Baker Street. According to the archived Nassau County records of 1892, this platted 40-foot by 100-foot lot predates the merging of Nassau County to the city of Suffolk. The existing dwelling is legal nonconforming and currently sits 2.7 feet from the side yard adjacent to the Deal Road property line. The applicant has proposed to build the addition in this line setback as shown with the property along Deal Road, and according to the assessor's record, the existing 809 square foot home was built in 1940, which predates the adoption of the current Unified Development Ordinance. Due to the inability to add an addition and meet the requirements of the side yard adjacent to a street, while increasing the existing nonconformity, staff recommends approval of this request. The illustration is shown here is the original draft of the property as it stands currently, with the existing home shown at 2.7 along the property line adjacent to Deal Road. Excuse me. And then this illustration here shows the addition when added in onto the property, shown here in red. The property owner, the applicant, also provided us illustrations of the addition and how it will be attached to the existing structure. And this is just a street profile to show you the area of impact of where the applicant is proposing to add the addition on the existing 809 square foot structure. And then lastly, this is just a zoomed in image of the area proposed for the site, showing where the structure or the addition will connect to the window area that's adjacent to Deal Road. This concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm available for comments and questions.
Do you say that this lot was platted in 1892?
Yes, ma'am.
That is wild. Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
Is there any other questions? Thank you so much.
No problem.
This will open our public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the application?
Hi, everybody doing? My name is Brandon Parker. Address 5581 Aurora Drive. So this structure here, if we're able to get approval for this variance, this is one of our couple homes that we're introducing into the affordable housing program. And with this would definitely be, a great start for Tier 1 construction.
Terrific. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
That's it.
Stay close. We may have some questions for you.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Sir, is there anything you'd like to add? That'll close the public hearing. Do we have any questions? I think this is a terrific application, probably one of my favorites all day. I think this will be a great asset to take a existing affordable home, add a room to it and a bathroom. You're sticking with the standards that were set forth and not the standards, but with the constraints. And I think it's a really great application. With that, I would make a recommendation for approval.
And a second.
We have a recommendation and a second. Do we have a conversation or discussion? Please call for a vote.
Shante Hall,
Yes.
Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Corey Carnegie, Melissa Venable,
Yes.
Fred Walker.
Yes.
The motion carries 4-0.
Good luck to you, sir. Congratulations. We're moving on to BZA 27-2024, 1207 Bethlehem Street by Tier 1 Construction. Ms. Cobb, will you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 27-2024. The applicant, Tier 1 Construction, is requesting a variance to reduce the required rear yard setback from 25 feet to 9 feet and to increase the maximum impervious coverage from 40% to 41.5% for construction of a new single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map 35EBN2*35, addressed as 1207 Bethlehem Street, zoning classification residential medium density. When you act on this request, you'll be acting on a request to reduce the required rear yard setback from 25 feet to 9 feet and to increase the maximum impervious coverage from 40% to 41.5% for the construction of a new single-family dwelling. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We will now have staff analysis and recommendation by William Mellon, zoning administrator.
Good afternoon, Board. Mr. Walker, this is my first meeting too. Welcome.
Thank you.
The applicant, Tier 1 Construction, is requesting a variance to reduce the required rear yard setback from 25 feet to 9 feet and to increase the maximum impervious coverage from 40% to 41.5% for the construction of a new single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map 35E BN2*35, addressed as 1207 Bethlehem Street, Suffolk, Virginia, Suffolk Voting Borough, zoning classification RM, residential medium density. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2-2204 of the Code of Virginia. The public notice sign was posted on the property pursuant to the request of the zoning administrator. And so we have the sign here posted for this meeting. Here we have our site plan for the proposed dwelling. The applicant is requesting a reduction to the required rear yard setback from 25 feet to 9 feet and to increase the impervious coverage by 1.5 to construct a new single-family dwelling. The dimensional requirements for lots located in the RM zoning district require that they have a total land area of 10,000 square feet with a minimum street frontage of 60 feet and a minimum lot width of 80 feet as measured at the front of the setback line. The lot is legally non-conforming as it does not meet the dimensional requirements today for the RM zoning district as shown per the attached physical survey, which is displayed. This parcel is only 80 feet in depth and approximately 3,200 square feet, which limits the amount of buildable area available. Due to the applicant's inability to meet the required setbacks, staff recommends approval of this request. And here we have the elevations showing what the finished product would look like, the single-family dwelling.
Thank you. I apologize, sir. I was looking at GIS earlier today, and it looked like that this one lot was previously maybe 3 lots. I was just trying to ask Ms. Cobb about that. Yeah, but do we have any questions or? Okay, sir, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This will open our public hearing for this application. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the application?
Yeah, Brandon Parker. So the way that this lot is made, there's a space that kind of tucks behind the home next door on the right-hand side of this lot. So the reason we're asking for this variance is because that'll make all of that just one backyard. And again, this is a new construction home that we're introducing to the affordable housing program that we're doing as well. We built this house. We're actually in the process of building this house now at 1304 Bethlehem, which is affordable housing as well. That's pretty much it. I mean, the site plan it's a little funky how it's set up, but this is, that would definitely help with the backyard because it's really nothing else you can do with the space except, turn it into yard space. That's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition of the application? Is there anything you'd like to add, sir? That'll close the public hearing. Do we have any questions or comments? I do like the fact this is one of the first houses we've seen in a while with a garage, which is great because I think that's necessary for us, even if it's just to store a bike or our stuff. So it is nice to see that, especially as it is part of your affordable housing. I wish there was a larger backyard, but I also understand that you don't want to compromise the house and that you're introducing the garage. Is there any, do we have a motion or conversation or question?
I'll make a motion for approval.
We have a motion for approval.
I second approval.
Second for approval for Mr. Walker. Discussion? Please call for a vote.
Shante Hall,
Yes.
Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Corey Carnegie, Melissa Venable,
Yes.
Fred Walker.
Yes.
The motion carries 4-0.
Congratulations, sir. Our last application this afternoon is BZA 28-2024, map number 35H, parentheses 3B25A, submitted by Anita Baker for SRHA. Ms. Cobb, will you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 28-2024. The applicant, Anita Baker, on behalf of Suffolk Redevelopment and Housing Authority, is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 10.4 feet for construction of a new single-family dwelling. The property is identified as Tax Map 35H 3B25A, located at Lucerne Avenue. Zoning classification, residential medium density. When you act on this request, you'll be acting on a request to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 10.4 feet for construction of a new single-family dwelling. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We will now have staff analysis and recommendation by William Mellon, zoning administrator.
As stated, the applicant, Anita Baker, on behalf of the Suffolk Redevelopment and Housing Authority, is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31-407, parentheses C, Table 407-1, Dimensional Standards J, to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 10.4 feet for construction of a new single-family dwelling. The property is identified as Tax Map 35H, parentheses 3, B25A, located on Lucerne Avenue, Whaleyville Voting Borough, zoning classification, residential medium density, RM. Aerial overhead. Here we have a posted sign. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2-2204 of the Code of Virginia. The public notice sign was posted on the property pursuant to the request of the zoning administrator. Here we have the proposed dwelling. In approving, the applicant is requesting a reduction to the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 10.4 feet for construction of a new single-family dwelling. The applicant states that the residential medium zoning district RM setbacks will not allow the building of a single-family dwelling. This property was acquired by the Suffolk Redevelopment and Housing Authority in 2001 for the purpose of constructing housing for low to moderate income persons. The dimensional requirements for lots located in the RM zoning district require that they have a total land area of 10,000 square feet with a minimum street frontage of 60 feet and a minimum lot width of 80 feet measured at the front setback line. According to the archived Nasman County records of 1914, this platted 39 by 100-foot lot predates the merging of the county with the city of Suffolk and is legally nonconforming, as it is approximately 3,900 square feet. This application maintains the required 10-foot interior side setback from the adjacent property while requesting to reduce the required side yard adjacent to Orlando Street. Without this reduction, a single family dwelling could not be constructed on this lot. Therefore, staff recommends approval of this request. It's not the oldest one today, but it's 1914. It's pretty
good, yeah.
It's old. Not the oldest. Staff is available for questions.
Thank you, Will. Any questions? We'll go ahead and open our public hearing then. Thank you so much. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Anita Baker, and I'm the Community Development Manager with the Suffolk Redevelopment and Housing Authority. And we are here to request a variance for the lot at 25A in the Lucerne Avenue area in Suffolk, Virginia. We're requesting that side yard variance from 25 feet, and I believe that was to 10.4. The variance is needed to construct a new single-family dwelling. Our agency's objective is to provide affordable housing for a population of people whose incomes are within the 80% of the median income limits, as established by HUD in the Suffolk area. Without the variance, we will not be able to proceed with our affordable housing objective as it pertains to this lot. I would like to also share that Suffolk Housing Authority, we've accumulated several lots over the past 20 years. Actually, it spans over about 20 years ago. And we've looked at each lot to see what we can do to help develop these lots to house more of our citizens. I thank you for hearing me today and look forward to your response.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Is there anything else you'd like to add, Ms.? Oh. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Okay. Sir, please provide your name and address.
Jones. I stay at 514 Lucerne Avenue, and I'm kind of opposed to that variance because the street, I stayed on the street 50 years, the same address what you're talking about. And they cut the street, there's a street on the side off of Lucerne. It's a circle street in the area.
Orlando Street?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a circle street. And it's not enough space there nowhere. I mean, there's no space. There's a water hydrant in front, and there's a drainage ditch on the side, and there's no space at all. And by being a circle, cars come around kind of swiftly sometimes. And if you put a house there, when the kids come through there, it'd be very hazardous. It'd be very hazardous. So.
Sir, are you the adjacent property owner?
I don't own the property, but I've stayed there. I stayed there, I want to say 50 years at the same address.
Okay.
So,
Good for you. Well, thank you. Do you have anything additional?
Yes, and up until they say they bought the property in 2021, me and my neighbor have been keeping that property cut as much as we could. All the maintenance over there. Nobody never said, I said nothing. So we just going as keeping the community right. So we want what's best for the community.
Right.
So we kept the grass cut and whatever. So, I just suppose, I don't think it's a great idea, put a house there, and cutting out less space between the road and the house is just not a good idea, in my opinion.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your input. If you'll stand by, we may have some questions for you. Is there anyone else to speak in opposition of this application? Hi, ma'am, if you could give us your name and address?
Good afternoon. My name is Mrs. Margaret Jones. I preside at 2400 East Washington Street. The property, I got a letter from the committee said about this hearing, and I'm here to find out what it's all about. I own some property in Orlando on Lucerne Avenue, and I received a letter about that. They want to rezone it, and I want to find out what it's all about. And the only thing I got was a letter. And I feel like that by our own property, that I need to know more about this. The only thing I saw was redevelopment, Anita Baker, on the letter. And that's all I saw and what they wanted. But they need to come to me and find out what they want because the land belongs to me on Lucerne Avenue. And this is the reason why I'm here today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else to speak in opposition? Ms. Baker, is there anything you'd like to add?
Not exactly sure I could hear what the gentleman was saying. He made reference to the cutting of the yard, I guess the cutting of the property. I would like to say that our office has been maintaining. There's adjacent property, which when we were putting a sign up, the gentleman was out and was asking me what we were going to do with the property, the lot, 25A. And I guess it was some misunderstanding within our agency. It appears we were cutting his lot, maintaining it. The lot that I'm referring to has a lot of trees, brush on it, so it would have to be cleared. So it seems to me that that lot that he's referring to that he was maintaining, it sounded as if insinuating it was Suffolk or SRHA's lot was actually his lot that we were maintaining. That's all I just wanted to say.
So then you're suggesting that the lot that's up here, Mr. Ernest Jones was maintaining, potentially?
No, I'm suggesting that he was not maintaining our lot. He was not
Okay.
maintaining our lot.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close the public hearing? Okay, thank you. If you'd stay close, that does close the public hearing. We do have several questions, Ms. Baker, if you could come on back. Thanks. I'll start with mine because I seem to be the most talkative today. Mr. Jones brought up some good facts, and obviously he's lived there for quite some time, and there is some concern about the turn from Lucerne Avenue to Orlando Avenue and the narrowness of the property. Obviously, we've had these types of applications that ask for even less property between a right-of-way and a side yard, because we're in an area where, what we call this the infill development area, where we are looking for these older lots that are non-conforming to be able to meet a standard so that they can be buildable. So I actually appreciate the 10.4 feet, but I did want to ask if there was any thought of maybe making the one side yard that has the shared property boundary a little bit smaller, and making the property or the side yard setback adjacent to the right-of-way maybe a little bit larger, so that we were a little further from the right-of-way. I don't know if there was any conversation or discussion about that. I think the 10-foot is okay, but I didn't know if maybe that could be 12 feet and the internal property line could be 8, or if you talked about that internally.
Yeah, that could actually be 12.17 feet rather than the 10 feet, 10.4.
Yeah. If
With
that's
that-
something I don't see a reason why we couldn't move forward, and I'll ask Ms. Cobb about that. There's not a reason. I'm sorry? Oh, okay. We would have to re-advertise it. My question to her was if we approve the 10.0, but the other side would be, I'll I'll put that on hold for a second. I had another question for you. It does look like visibility, because the house is set back a good distance from the front property line, or I'm going to say it wrong, Lucerne Avenue. We have good visibility around that corner, so that wouldn't be an issue. I think the other question that came up by Miss Margaret Jones was there's a concern that this is a rezoning, but this is not a rezoning. It's just a request to be able to reduce the property setback lines. So, and this takes place quite a bit in downtown Suffolk, because there's this zoning that suggests that the lots are supposed to be 10,000 square feet with these very large setbacks, but under the infill ordinance that we have for City of Suffolk, they're allowed to come forward to our board and ask for a reduction in side yard setbacks. So we meet monthly and have to look at different applications for reduced side yard setbacks or reduced front yard setbacks. But this is not a rezoning that we're looking at. So they're just looking to build a single house, which is viable for this property. I hope that clears up questions. I'm sorry that you had to stand here for that. But do we have any other questions for Miss Baker? No? I don't know, so I will come back to you and ask you if you feel comfortable with the application at 10.4 feet, we can move forward today. If it's something you'd like to reconsider, maybe reduce the side adjacent to the right-of-way, and if you'd like to increase the side adjacent to the right-of-way and reduce the side adjacent to the shared property boundary, we can look at this again next month. But if you're comfortable with what we have in place, we can move forward today.
I think we can look at maybe reducing it, you say that? Reducing it to the 12.17.
Yeah, expanding along the,
Yes.
and I only say that, I didn't get a chance to look at it in detail, but it does look like the house that sits behind you, and I don't know for sure, it may be set in a little bit, it may have a bit of a larger setback to Orlando, and because that, I think, is a fairly well-traveled road, having a little bit of distance there might be helpful. It might respond to the folks that have lived there for so many years, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I would like to make a motion to table this application for 30 days, just to reconsider the side yard setback, and then we will reconvene. So I have a motion to table this,
A second.
and a second on that motion. Is there a discussion of the motion? Thank you so much, Ms. Baker.
Thank you.
We'll have a vote. Ms. Cobb, if you could call for a vote to table for 30 days.
Shante Hall,
Yes.
Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Corey Cornegay, Melissa Venable,
Yes.
Fred Walker.
Yes.
The motion carries 4-0.
I moved quickly there, but we are going to look, Mr. Jones, because of your request, Redevelopment Housing Authority has agreed to look at increasing that side yard setback distance. So we hope to see you again next month, but thank you for coming out and speaking today. And thank you for helping to keep your neighborhood beautiful and keeping it up. It does take a village, for sure. That concludes all our public hearings. Is there any other business, any new business? Thank you so much for coming out today. That, what do I say? Ends this public meeting.
So that answers the question, whether we have a meeting next month.
We have a meeting next month.